All right. So if you are ending your games in frustration because you feel like you deployed incorrectly, you just totally botched your deployment and that's why you lost the game, this is going to be a very good video for you to watch. We are specifically going over Awakened Dynasty today for the Necrons. It's a list that I play competitively, that I have a lot of fun with, and I'm going to be going over today exactly how I deploy it on the battlefield and things that or I guess more or less going through my mind while I'm deploying. And with that said, obviously this is specifically on Necrons, but I think the biggest thing for me with these videos is the things that are going through my mind and tactics you can apply hopefully to your army as well. So if you're playing GSC, if you're playing Orcs, if you're playing T-Suns, hopefully some of these concepts you can find value with and can apply them to your own army as well. So if that's something that interests you, please stick around and let's get into it, shall we? So we have Awakened Dynasty today. We have a tipping point layout, and it is going to be layout 1 GW. I'm based here in the US. I know some people have commented as far as like with ITC and WTC layouts, but the majority of the tournaments that I play over here are just on GW, so that's what I practice on. So hopefully, even though if you don't play on these GW layouts, again, you could still get some value out of it. So we have, again, tipping point, layout 1, GW. And this is the Awakened Dynasty list off to the right here. And I figured it'd be easier just to have like icons and actually showing where I'm deploying things on the board to give you just a bit better visual representation. So first things first, when we are thinking about deployment is what we are putting in reserves. I am probably going to do a separate video on reserves specifically and what's going through my mind. But let's just say, hypothetically speaking, we are playing against, I don't know, let's say like a run of them. Let's just say we're playing against Blood Angels today, okay? So what's going in my mind as far as for reserves before I deploy? So with Blood Angels specifically, most of the time, they don't have a lot of units in their list. I mean, they're usually between like 10 and like 15 units per se. And knowing that up front with Awakened Dynasty, the biggest thing that threatens this list is big hammer units early. And so if I can delay exposing my big units, i.e. being the Race and the Lich Guard that I really want to keep alive for the late game, and just kind of annoy them with little pieces with the Scorpek Destroyers and the Scorpek Lords, I am going to do that. Because the best part about this list is that I have the ability to either attach all these Scorpek Lords to the Scorpek Destroyers. So I can turn basically 6 units into 3, or I can turn 3 units into 6. And that has a lot of value depending on what your matchup is, especially in a tournament setting. Because against Blood Angels, I would most likely have all the Scorpek Lords detached, so I have more units on the battlefield that I can just send up and just annoy them, and it forces them to have to bring out their big stuff, and then that way I can hit them first with my hammer units, with like the Lich Guard or the Race, okay? So since we're going against Blood Angels, and again, I'm going to do a deployment video because there's a lot to talk about there. There's a lot of depth on that, and it's fun to talk about, but we're going to simplify it for today. So Scorpek Lords are going to be detached from the Scorpeks, okay? So that's the first thing we need to talk about. And then as far as reserves, really the only thing that I usually have in reserve is one Locust Destroyer down here, and this is the one with the 4-up Feel No Pain, which is super good. And then sometimes a unit of Scorpek Destroyers, but in this case we are going to have, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have the Scorpeks attached to the 4-up Feel No Pain. And then all of these are going to be separate, okay? So this is the only unit that we're going to have in reserve, and actually in one Locust Destroyer right here, okay? So starting with deployment, we're going to go with usually our home field first. You want to give your opponent the least amount of information up front, okay? So first thing we're going to do is we are going to put a Hexmark Destroyer on the home field. And where is our Hexmark Destroyer at? Oh, there he is, okay. We'll shrink him down a little bit because he's definitely not that big of a footprint. So we're just going to put him like back here. He's blown up, so he's protected against indirect. And it's super strong in Star Shatter because of the fact that their are a lot of armies that can still drop in. The 3-inch to the 6-inch deep strike rule is huge, where you don't have to worry as much about like crazy threats on the home field. I mean, it's still going to happen, but with the 1 CP strat just to bring the hex mark back is just super strong. So we love that. Hex mark, I think, is a great anchor piece for Awakened that I've really liked. I mean, there are other options. You could run like Death Marks or like Lich Guard or something like that, but I personally like the hex mark. It's been working out well. So, and it's a character and you can bring it back. So we're going to put the hex mark there. That would probably be more or less our first drop, okay? Then our next drop is probably going to be something else that's like, you know, I don't really want to expose, probably the infiltrators. Again, we need to talk about the infiltrators again, but I talk about this in length on another video, and the other deployment breakdown video, which I can link at the end if you want to check that out. But long story short, with infiltrators is usually they actually are always going to go first, okay? So this is usually a good spot to put your infiltrators just because they have to commit resources past this footprint to get line of sight on the flayed ones. So if I put the flayed ones in here, then all of a sudden your opponent can move up and shoot them right here, and you have really no way to interact with them or that unit the next turn because they're behind the footprint. So you're not able to see them draw any line of sight. Same deal with, oh, let me bump this back here. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. So you want to put them somewhere right here. This is a really good spot for them because then they have to commit something over this point if they want to kill the flayed ones, and then in return, you're just going to shoot them up. Again, you don't want to put your infiltrators on the point the very first turn because, again, they could draw overwhelming force, they could draw storm hostile, and you're literally just going to give them free points. We do not want that. So this is a good spot for your flayed ones. Our infiltrators usually first turn, at least on this layout. And then we're going to put the Hexmark Destroyer back here, okay? Next up, we'll probably put down some of our Scorpec Destroyers. So usually the first unit of Scorpec Destroyers is going to go probably somewhere like right here. Basically because this is a really good staging point. So for turn 1, I can just put them right here up against the wall or 1 inch away if you don't want to have them charge. Probably against Blood Angels is going to be 1 inch away. And it allows you to have good movement to kind of threaten basically up to here and cover all of this objective right here. Okay, so they have a decent threat range because they do move 8, which is nice. So we'll put some Scorpex right there. And then in conjunction, we will put a Scorpec Lord. Oh no, sorry about that. Okay, we will put a Scorpec Lord. Actually, what I can do, there we go. Probably right around here as well, okay? 2 separate units, so you can feed out what you need to, okay? So probably put a Scorpec Lord right there. This is our reserve down here. Next up, we are going to put down some Reanimators, and the Reanimators, what I'm thinking about, basically one Reanimator is always going to exist around the race to synergize with that stratagem, and then another Reanimator is going to synergize around the Lich Guard, okay? So ahead of time, I'm thinking about where do I want to put the Lich Guard? And more or less, the Lich Guard are probably going to be staged up somewhere around this wall here because this is a really nice staging point for them going into that first turn. So knowing that ahead of time, I probably am going to put one Reanimator probably somewhere right around here, okay? It keeps it safe that first turn. It's going to keep them next to the Lich Guard for the aura. And I'm always thinking about where am I moving these units the first turn, okay? Where are they gonna be going? Okay, that's the biggest thing to think about. So I know Reanimator is gonna advance up here, Lich Guard are gonna advance up here, and it's gonna be a nice little cozy little pocket right there, which is what you want. Okay. Next, I'll probably deploy the other Reanimator. This is gonna live around the race. Now I know the race are going to exist around this objective here. Okay, so there's a couple ways that you could do this, depending on. The Reanimator usually, I think it's too tall to actually clear like the first floor line of sight blocking. I think usually floors are 5 inches tall. Check with your local TO on that, but most are 5. Sometimes they're 4. It will vary from tournament to tournament, but most of the time Reanimators aren't able to hide behind walls. They're too tall. So we're going to put the Reanimator right here. Reason for that is it gives it an easy way. It stays out of line of sight first turn, and it gives us flexibility to just go around and advance it and put it right here. Because I know, again, the first turn race are probably going to be deployed right here, and they're going to advance out onto this point right here. Okay, so Reanimator is going to go right there. Then we'll probably put down our Royal Warden. Now, I like the Royal Warden a lot as a tech piece. Because I will go over this at the end as well. But he synergizes really well with Xeris because a lot of good opponents are trying to figure out a way to battle shock Xeris, so you're not able to use his res strat. It's a really good counter strategy for Awakened, and it's just a problem that we have to deal with. And so either they're trying to battle shock you or they're trying to vect you in the midfield, which is super strong because basically you're taking that 1 CP strat up to 2, which we don't like either. So we're going to put a Royal Warden right here because we know we're going to shift him up probably the first turn or just keep him like right here. And his 12-inch aura is going to cover everything that I needed to, mainly Xeris or like a Scorpec Lord. So I can auto pass a battle shock in like fringe cases and still be able to use the strat on them. So it's super important. So Royal Warden's going to hang out right there. Then we'll probably bring out the Tomb Blades. Okay, so Tomb Blades, they are going to go right here. And reason for that is similar like in Star Shatter is we want to use them as a potential early game just denial threat. So they're really good at like scouting 9, if you need to, and then zipping up the midfield, which is nice. So it gives us like some play there, which is cool. All right, so Tomb Blades are going to go right there. Then we still have another Scorpec unit and another Scorpec Lord. So the next Scorpec unit is going to go right here, probably right around there. And we'll put a Scorpec Lord. Again, these are 2 separate units. They are not attached right here. Okay, so we'll put him right there and right there. All right, and then we would probably drop the Lich Guard at this point, and the Lich Guard are going to go right here. Okay, with the Overlord attached, and this is the regular Overlord because he's strength 13. I think it's just a better synergy with this list than the Translocation Shroud. Don't get me wrong, he's great. But in the flat 6 advance, but the strength 13 is just, it's awesome. Again, strength 13 if you do the +1 strength at +1 AP strat. Otherwise, it's strength 12. Okay, so they're going to go right there mainly because we want to advance them up the first turn. They're going to provide synergy with Xeris. I'm going to talk about that. There's a lot of things. Stick around to the end because there's going to be a lot of things I'm going to talk about of why this is deployed as it is and why it synergizes so well. Okay, so Lich Guard are going to go right here. And mainly that, yeah, again, they're going to advance up here, just kind of stage in that pocket. Next up, we are going to do Race and the Technomancer. And we're just essentially going to line them up right here. Now, we all know the Race are a pretty big footprint. Man, it's just not behaving well today. Okay, so we're going to put Technomancer behind the wall right here because we are also trying to prevent any sort of precision threat. As a one big thing to talk about. So basically, turn 1, we are trying to move up these Race onto this point, and then we can string them back so the Technomancer is still hanging behind that wall. So it could prevent any sort of like Blood Angels charging in. They do the epic challenge. They snipe out the Technomancer, and then they have another unit just like clean them up because then they don't have to feel no pain. That's like a very real thing. So if you can, at all costs, try to protect the Technomancer in the early game because good players will definitely try to precision him out. All right. So Wraith unit is going to go right there. And then we are going to bring in Xeris, all right? So Xeris is going to go right here, all right? Just right there within 3 inches of the wall here. So he's going to have Lona, and he really synergizes the whole list and makes it work, okay? So we're going to put Xeris right there. And we're going to put the Locust Heavies. And the Locust Heavies have the Veil of Darkness. So I can pick them up once per game and drop them anywhere within 9. Okay, so essentially what we're going to do, we're going to put them right there because it allows me to move them 8 out and cover this firing lane, and cover this firing lane. You want to deploy them in a way where they can get to their target fairly easily. And then in emergency cases, if they expose something really big and you need them somewhere, you can just pick them up and then drop them somewhere else. It is an extremely reliable platform. They're hitting on 2s because they're +1 to hit with the Locust Lord, crit 5s, and you can spend 1 CP and give them full rerolls if they're within 24 inches. So, and they reroll 1s to wound as well. So AP4, flat 6. It's just, it's great. It's super great. And a lot of times they live in a lot of the matchups that I've noticed because you have so much mid-board presence, because this is like a full kind of melee Awakened army, that they can't afford to go after the Locust Heavy Destroyers because there's so much in the mid-board that they need to take care of first. So that a lot of times they just end up living, which is kind of cool. So this is what the deployment looks like, okay? So let's talk about why this synergizes so well, okay? So with the deployment, again, we're always thinking about we need to make sure we can score all of our secondaries. So area denial, flayed ones are going to go towards the center. Secure no man's land. We can spread out the flayed ones turn 1 and cover both objectives and get secure no man's land that way. We can contain with the tomb blades. We can contain with the Scorpec destroyers or the reanimator. We have all of our secondaries covered. So that is one of the biggest things when you're deploying. Think about how you are going to score your secondaries before you even get into the game. Like, write your list and then literally make like a mental checklist of like, okay, how am I going to score containment turn 1? How am I going to get recover assets turn 1? How am I going to get sabotage? Okay, those things are very, very important. And then the second biggest thing when you're deploying is think about where you're wanting your units to go first, okay? So with Xeris here, and what makes this Awakened list so efficient is a lot of times what you do is you move up Xeris, right? And you just clip this point, okay, turn 1. And then let's say you move up these flayed ones, okay? So they're moving up like 1.1 inches away from the wall. You're going to stage up the Lich Guard and the Race move up. We talked about the Technomancer. We stage up this here. Let's say we maybe move up the Reanimator. We shift him like over here out of line of sight, or he goes over here. He like advances or something like that. Or maybe we just keep him back there and we just shift this one up and he's within range. That's probably what I would do. Maybe we just keep this one back here just to create the screen. Let's say we move up the World Warden to get the Tomb Blades move up. Okay. We're doing this fairly quickly, but I want to really showcase like how this list synergizes. Okay. So essentially what happens is we're playing against Blood Angels, right? They don't have a lot of shooting generally. Okay. So what happens is you don't really give them very good targets. They can shoot at the Race, which are going to be -1 to hit. They're just like a huge damage sponge, okay? And you have Xeris right here that is lone op and also just a huge damage sponge. But what you're doing is they're going to bring out resources, right? Okay? And they could shoot him, right? Let's say they kill him in shooting. They probably wouldn't. Blood Angel's probably going to kill him in shooting. But let's just say they do. You spend the 1 CP, you bring them back, and you are conveniently positioned where the Lich Guard are exactly 6 inches away from Xeris. So what happens is when you're able to res up Xeris, you can heroic intervene with the Lich Guard for free because the Overlord is in there. You're getting the CP reduction. And what ends up happening is then you're able to get the free charge in with the Lich Guard, and a lot of times they can clean up some of those early targets and you give them free movement on the point. So not only do you kill the unit, they probably don't kill Xeris, and then you also score the primary. Like, it's a really good synergy, and it creates dilemmas for your opponent. It really puts them in a spot where they got to think about what they want to do. And same thing with the Race here. A lot of times, if you position the Race right, it's a lot of OC that they can't really deny on the point. And the problem is that they're going to hit these units, and then the Scorpex are going to clean up on the clapback, because the Race and the Lich Guard do some decent amount of damage, but it's the Scorpex in this detachment that are just really nasty, where they're going in, so they bounce off the Race. The Race are just going to endlessly heal because you have the reanimation strats. And then the Scorpex just come in and clean up. And then same thing over here. The Scorpex can come in and clean up. And then you can also rapid ingress this unit in somewhere over here and then clean, like, go on this objective. So I'll probably go like that's probably an entirely another video as far as like strategies with this list, but that just gives you an idea of like why it's deployed the way that it is. And there's a value in terms of like almost flip flopping it around. So you're moving up the Scorpex first, and then letting the Race and Lich Guard kind of stay back, and letting them kill those little units first, and then moving up. So this is the deployment breakdown for my Awakened Dynasty list. Let me know what you thought below. Anything maybe you would change, things you like, maybe things to add in a deployment breakdown video in the future. But if you stuck around to the end, appreciate you. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you guys got some value out of it. And until the next one, peace.